Hello and welcome to the Business of Storytelling from Moore's Law Media in association with Vimeo, the platform with everything you need to make, manage and share brilliant videos at vimeo.com. In this podcast, my job as the host, Neil Moore, is to speak to content creators, commissioners, storytellers about how they do what they do so well and get them to tell us how we can do it better as well. I'm joined today by Nikki Taylor, who is the Growth Strategy Marketing Director for UPS. Nikki, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Very nice to see you. So, before we get into the whole storytelling bit, just give me the briefest version of your career trajectory and how you got to where you are now.
So, originally I'm from Australia. Started as a web designer, actually way back when. Fell into marketing, fell in love with it, worked with sports, worked with property, then decided to move over to Singapore with a logistics company. Moved to the agency side, moved back to logistics, went to Google, and now again back in logistics with UPS.
That was a very brief summary. Thank you very much. So you're at UPS now, big logistics firm. We've all seen the brown vans. We're all familiar with the brand. Why is storytelling important to you, your role, and to UPS?
Sure. Well, at UPS, we're very passionate. We're passionate UPSers. We love UPS, but it is unprecedented for us to think that the small business or someone who's in a large multinational would really care as much about UPS and about logistics as we do. And so for that reason, it's really important that we package up the stories of what we stand for, what we do, so that it is relevant to them. And so that's why storytelling is really at the core of what we do at UPS.
It's very rare that, if you'll forgive me, very rare that a brand representative will admit that not everybody loves or cares about their brand as much as they do, because you live and breathe it every day. So give me an example of how you might tell a story about UPS, but that's not about UPS, so that it's more relevant to your customer.
Sure. So we have a very strong focus on SMBs and making sure that they grow. That's what their success is, our success. So that's been the core sort of positioning that we have taken, and it's backed by a lot of research as we do. So to do that, we like to highlight SMBs and how we have helped them grow and how we have helped them with their eCommerce business. So it's really about them telling their stories, and then it's weaved in how UPS has helped them get there. So it will be a larger story about, someone who's opened up a clothing store in Singapore, but as they expand and they deliver to Hong Kong or Korea or anything like that, who gets them there? What is the reliable process of getting there? It's through UPS. And also, especially in our region, it's very complicated when you think about cross-border shipping or logistics. There's all those customs and all those delays, and then add in on top of that all of COVID, all the issues we had with the supply chain. So it's not as straightforward as people think, especially when they start out, these small businesses. Often it might be one or two packages that they're sending. They go to the post office. It's pretty straightforward. It's a bit slow, but it gets done. But as they start to ramp up and these businesses gets bigger, then all of a sudden they need that trusted partner. And that's where we come in. And this is really what we want to tell. We want the story to tell that. So rather than telling you, we're really reliable, we're really trustworthy, you should come to us and we're a plane. Rather than that, where, again, if you're scrolling through your TikTok or your IG Reels, you're not going to stop, nor would you care if you were seeing it as an ad. However, if I was to tell you a story, even in 15 seconds, of how we helped Sulong down the road export something out, his e-commerce business from China, that might pick up your interest, and then you might want to find out more about UPS. And that will also help get that recognition across of where we want to position our brand of being that growth partner for you.
I like that positioning of sort of, I suppose in the logistics industry, the only things you've really got to play with is sort of time, cost, and reliability. So you've got to find a new positioning, and the idea that we help businesses grow and telling a growth story. I mean, what small business doesn't want to grow? I get that. That seems like a much more relevant and aspirational and less, I suppose logistics could be seen as a utility, kind of a little bit dull, but you can kind of make it aspirational. If you're using UPS, business is good. You're exporting to a lot of places.
Well, I agree with that, but we still do leverage the utility side of things. Okay. So that's the other side. When you talk about the vast variety of stories that we tell. So at the very high level, like with anybody who's doing brand or marketing, we look at that brand awareness, that brand familiarity at the top of the funnel. But as we pull you through, we have so many different services and tech that can help you that you wouldn't know about. And again, we talked about the complexity of shipping. So a lot of our SMBs, their pain point is it's not their full-time job to do logistics. They don't understand it. Even if it is their full-time job, it's in a smaller company, so they probably don't have the knowledge that those that in the the Apple and the big corporations do. So they really just want someone to tell them, how do I do it? So we build out a lot of stories around how to. How do I ship internationally? How do I package up a package? We had this discussion when we talk about storytelling actually just today of a customer of ours is a painter and exports their artwork to the US. It's so important. What keeps her up at night is how she packages her artwork, because if it arrives damaged, it's one of a kind. So it not only costs her the amount of money that it took there, it damages her business, but also from a personal level, that was the artwork that she created. So looking at those pain points of, what keeps our customers up at night, that's where the utility comes into play. The good thing with UPS is we like our data, we're very robust in that, and we've taken a lot of time. We have, our core programs, which I call the workhorses, which we try to engage all of our customers with, and through that, we bring out a lot of insights about what works, what doesn't. And so a recent one that we did is we found that with our CRM programs, when we did content related to brokerage, which is again talking about customs clearance and stuff like that, we had a massive spike. And I kid you not, we have good open rates, about 40%, very good for the benchmark, 80% open rate when we talked about brokerage, 80%, which I've been working for a long time, and 80% is pretty phenomenal when you're talking about thousands of emails as well. And so we took that and we went, okay, well, we want that snackable content and we want it to be more engaging and we want the story to be told. So where do we go with this? And that's where we built out these whole mini-series of clarifying customs. And again, it was listening to our experts from UPS. So we've got loads of characters within UPS, like I said, very passionate about what they do. They just need the time and space to be able to tell you, and they will. So it's like talking to your aunt or uncle about them explaining what customs is to you, what brokerage is to you. So we developed this mini-series, which is on YouTube. It goes for 5 to 7 minutes, and there's about 7 of them. And we only launched it a couple of months ago. But again, even from an organic standpoint, we saw massive traction in viewership, people watching it actually to the end. So in this day and age, when we talk about the snackable content, which I'm all for, and we'll talk about that later, but it still comes back down to when you're talking stories, you want to engage them and you want them there for a long time. And this type of content, back to the utility type, really has resonated with a number of our core customers. And I think that's also important when you look at, as marketers, it's a challenge for us to always segment, right? We have SMBs, but our SMBs, what industries are, what countries are they? You could go down, and you should, but at the end of the day, a lot of the programs and things that you run end up being a little bit higher level. So when you do, making sure you have those stories that are very brand aspirational, and then those stories complementing that are utility, really does help pull people through and get that stickiness and that loyalty of, this is UPS, this is what they stand for, and actually, yes, I want to work with UPS. And that's why it's at the core of everything that we do.
So I love the story about the painter, totally get that. You mentioned you've got characters, and how do you find stories like that, like the painter and others, and also the characters in your organization? Where do they come from?
Yep. So the characters internally is sometimes a little bit of, obviously we know them, sometimes takes a little bit of encouragement. Definitely for the clarifying customs, when we started this internally, we knew that they would be good on camera, but for a lot of people it can be quite scary. So it took quite a bit of coaching to get them out, and they warmed up, and we had great teams behind us helping them on the day as well. So there was a lot of prep involved. And then off the back of that, they're very comfortable now and they're ready for season 2, and they're raring to go for season 2. So, it does take a little bit of time pulling those people out. And as marketers, we can see it. So we can identify those that have that charismatic ability to step out on camera once we give them the confidence. And also, looking through, because it was 3 of them, so making sure that they have that camaraderie or the banter to go off against, which I think is really great. The other one we talked about is, the SMBs that we really want, and we always want to talk to them for a couple of reasons. One, the more I talk to the SMBs, the more I know what their challenges are, which means a couple of things. It means, one, it feeds back into the business about my customer experience, the products, the services that I offer, and then from a marketer's standpoint, what content and when and how I offer it. So it's really important that we get those insights. So what we're actually doing, it's actually next week. One of the things that we're doing is we're rolling out a series of events, getting everyone back face to face. And also one of the things that I felt that we lacked was we used to run events for our larger customers because they have a salesperson assigned to them that talks to them all the time. Yep. But what about the SMBs that don't have a salesperson assigned to them? We know they really want to talk to us. And it's part of, self-serve models that they really don't get a lot of face time with anybody. So I said, well, why not have the opportunity with the events? Bring them in, bring all the experts. So we have all the experts going. And what we're setting up is what we call a story room. So we're going to have a sort of a back room of the networking event where we're going to ask people to come, tell us a little bit of insights about their challenges. Through that, we're going to understand some of the nuggets, and some of them, they're going to be pain points, which is great. Other ones are probably going to share some success stories too. And then off the back of that, we'll be able to identify who they are. We'll go back another time and we'll say, that's brilliant. We really like that. Here's a great win-win situation. We can promote your company, and let's sort of talk about how we've worked together and how UPS is integrated into your business, and let's build out a story together. And that's sort of how we get those stories going.
I'm super relieved to hear that, because I just find frequently when I speak to brands and we've worked together and continue to do some work together, I say, tell me about your customer, and they show me a Google Analytics screenshot, and I go, what? This tells me about your website. It doesn't tell me anything about your customer. That, I think the sort of almost fetishization of data has gotten to the point where I don't think people are talking to their customers as much. And I think it's in that qualitative. You need both. You need quantitative and qualitative, but it's in the qualitative that you find the little stories. Data shows you big patterns, but those SMB, those unique, like the painter story, those unique little SMB stories, which is such a creative way to showcase something like reliability, which I was being somewhat facetious about just now, but when you're a painter, that you suddenly make that really matter to me as a creative person. So I'm kind of relieved to hear that's happening. So let's say you're talking to your SMB customers. How do you know which one's telling you a good story? Like, what you're talking to a customer, something in you goes, oh, that's going to be good. We need to capture that. What is it that makes that happen, that gives you that feeling?
I mean, I think as marketers, it's that hook we sort of get, and we go, okay, that's a good angle. I think, you came back to the whole point of the data that everyone shows you. At UPS, I'm very lucky in the fact that I have access to competitive NPS, RMPS data. I know, because I've shown you. I know your head explodes when I show you that. But
it's not my natural calling.
I know it's not your natural thing. But, I have all this data, plus I have brand relevance data, plus we've done data around the campaigns of what they think, what they don't think. And, the golden rule with data is you should always triangulate it. There's never one source of truth, right? So, having because it's all sample size. So everyone coming up with a competitive NPS or saying that's your score, it's to show you you're headed in the right direction, right? But ultimately, all of that data helps you figure out where and who you should be talking to, and what are their pain points. And typically, those are the things as we've changed, like we said, you've worked with us and we've changed our approach to the how-to when it comes down to that utility type of thing. Those are the nuggets. So when you're talking to someone and they start talking about a problem and you go, oh, I feel like I've heard that a lot, or I feel like that is a challenge for everybody, or maybe that's a new challenge or something new, and we go, okay, I want to dive into that deeper. And it's like with anything, it's all different based on the country. And I think a lot of people forget this. I look after the region, APAC. At one point I had EMEA, which had Middle East and Africa in it as well. Now we're back to APAC, which is good. But, we often forget, and I have these conversations again, that it needs to be in local language and it needs to be a local story for it to resonate. And that's definitely what's come out through our research. In Japan is a great example. If you are not a Japanese person talking about a Japanese example they don't really rate it. So it's great that I got a customer story from someone in Singapore, but they don't identify with it. So me finding someone, whether they're an expat or they're Japanese and they're in Japan and they're selling tea and talking to them, you know, and how it's been difficult and how we've helped them, you know, that does resonate with them. So when we look at the stories, for me, it's normally, you know, I know you know how it is as a journalist, it's teasing out some of those things. So what are the issues that you really have? Did we help overcome you with UPS? Or what is it that you really do appreciate? Why do you come with UPS? Because no, we're not the cheapest and we won't ever be, but that's because we offer a premium service, a service that those that if you go to the post office cannot offer. So why have they decided to come with us? And it will be like with the painter, it's because about reliability. So it's about connecting the dots back of the nuggets of what they say as to the positioning and the proof points that I know are important to my customers. So I know reliability is important. I know trust is important. I know that I want to position us as a innovative tech company because we have so much of this tech with self-serve pricing, all this stuff is stuff that people don't know about. So any stories I get that sort of lend itself into that, I'll jump on. And then it's really about teasing it out. You know, when you think about a story, it's about having that hook at the beginning, especially now with everything having to be snackable and get them in at the beginning. But it's about that. How do you build up the anticipation and what is the payoff? I mean, that's just a general way that we do stories, right? And I think over the years, it hasn't changed. It's still there. It's just how short or how long it is. And so again, it's using your data, knowing what's important to your customers, and then really listening as the customers give you their feedback and just asking them, like you said, asking them questions, asking them more questions. What was good? What was bad? And then from there, all of a sudden, stories are born.
And not being afraid of the answers. I think sometimes people don't want to ask the question in case they get an answer they don't like. You know?
This is true. This is true.
I like what you had to say then about proof points. So often proof points are quite literally that. They're bullet point. We can do this. We are that. We're able to do that. But actually, they're probably better communicated in the form of a story, perhaps through the voice of a customer, than just saying, we can do this, and you just got to take my word for it.
I give you a great example. So I totally agree with that. And I think, you know, as a brand, you want to create those stories, and that's what we look to do. And that's where we've gone with some of the video that we've engaged with, some of the work that we've been doing with you. But even if you take it down to, and I've brought this up a few times, as we start to go, and what we find effective of more of that snackable content, whether it be on TikTok or Instagram. Last year we had a couple of influencers, and we just wanted it around reliability and trust. And the engagement level that we got, and I'm not gonna lie, I never would have created that story or that way that they were doing it because it's a different demographic. But you know, they had the UPS driver come and the person was like so excited, and just how they interacted with the product and the delivery driver was, the story in that small amount of time worked for that audience. So again, you know, when you think about who we serve, obviously we don't serve children because you need to be able to pay for it. But occasional shippers or SMBs, you can be, especially in this day and age, you could be 18, 19. If you're an entrepreneur, you could be. Or you could have occasional shipping where you're going to your university. Or you could be 50, 60 years old. So there's a vast majority. So it's important that you look at the different types of storytelling and telling that story. And like you said, that thing about reliability, I never would have come up with that story, but it resonated with a lot of people.
This was, I think I wasn't involved in this, but I think I saw this. This is the one where there was a bunch of influencers in Singapore and they were handing the box onto each other, right? And
yeah, so
every time it cut, it sort of passed to a different influencer.
Yeah, so one was, she's just crazy, like she ran around like crazy, which I didn't really understand, but it went really viral. And then the next one is Smiling Afro, who's quite well known in Singapore, and he had a pretend, he basically got delivered a doll and had a pretend date with her.
Risque.
Risque, and then basically shipped off his parcel to the basketballer, who then got the basketball out and sort of put it in the hoop and passed it on to everybody else. So again, very basic, but it was about the reliability of it getting to the next person in the time that they had said, and because part of the story was the smiling afro had sort of forgotten about it and then all of a sudden had to make the deadline, so needed next day delivery. So UPS had the reliability to be able to do that. So it's small things like that, you think about it, back to your whole point, we're very passionate about our trains and our planes and our trucks, but no one else is. And therefore, how do I get someone else excited to see a UPS driver? How do I get someone else excited to have, that truck turn up on their place?
Well, it's exciting when you get home and there's a package waiting for you. So telling the story from that point of view,
that's fine. So that's why we moved. That's why we moved it to that side of things. And so that's why you've got to look and change this up. And again, you've got to look at the different varieties of what you're doing, where it's really big brand building, really big stories, where it really is sinking into the top sort of manifesto and the brand positioning that we want. Then moving forward to more utilities type things where there's a need and I answer that need and there's more interaction, or you understanding some of the products and services that link back into it, to more of the I just want you, if you go away with anything, I just want you to think UPS reliability or UPS trust. Those type of stories, which are different again. But it all connects. When we think about branding, every touch point we have has a consequence that goes on. I mean, this is the one key thing that people forget. I'm always asked, what's our 3-5 year brand strategy, or what's our marketing plan? I'm like, I can totally build that out for you, but it is correlation into your investment. But a lot of people forget the small things that you do actually impact in totality. And there's a great equation somewhere, like basically if you do nothing over 365 days, you get nothing. If you have very limited budget, because we talk about whether you have budget, no budget, if you have very limited budget and you do little things, maybe only a couple of little dots here and there every day for 365 days, or even only for 2 months, you are still better off than doing nothing when it comes to your brand. And it's just getting more precision and better story. But this is the thing, if you don't have, and I think that's where it comes back to for me, of why content and storytelling in particular is always at the key for me, because I've come up in zero-based budgeting or limited budgeting. So I've always had to be scrappy. I've always had to be very good at pitching. I mean, the agency definitely honed the skills of pitching. So when I do have the money, I can definitely utilize it, but I've come up through that scrappy upbringing. So because of that, I know the best way to get that engagement and that traction is through a good story. It's same like we talked about before, the hook, the anticipation, and then the payoff. I mean, it's a formula that we continue to use, but it is something that really helps drive growth, it helps drive engagement, and it helps drive revenue.
I just want to quickly go back to the influencer thing again for a moment. So
yes.
You used a number of influencers, they were all in the same video together, and Smiling Afro's little sketch in the middle was quite risque. How hands-on, hands-off? Because the whole point with an influencer, we're always told, is you've got to let the influencer do their thing. So in your experience, I've not done much of that kind of work myself. How did you work with them? Yeah,
so in this particular one, we give guidance, but we were a bit more hands-off. So it had to be within the comfort level. Like with anything, and I think, coming back to you and Simon have taught me very well, a good brief is really where it comes down to. So the brief is there of what the brand is. But before you engage an influencer, it really is about making sure that they fit within your brand. It's the same with sponsorship. Like, why would you sponsor someone? They have to fit with your brand based on the values and the ideas of what the brands are. And they don't have to be the same industry at all. No, they don't. But you have to be aligned in what you're doing to be able to work together. I think, one of the things that we're looking at next, because we see it very effective, so we have what we call the KOLs, but also, as you've been working with us, with Line, is looking at content creators to help us create some of that snackable content in different ways, so different storytelling and getting all those different types of tonality and styles that will work for different types of audiences, but still say the same message and still fit within the brand. I mean, you and I both know a brand has a bit of depth and width that you can play within, but at the end of the day, you need to know that it is UPS.
Unquestionably. So you've talked about customer stories, with influencers, the brokerage videos with your sort of internal people. So there's a lot of different types of stories and content and whatever you're making. So typically for you, what is the process of bringing a story from concept to completion? How painful? A lot of people find that very painful. So how painful is that? This worries me now because you've done a lot of work. You and I have done a lot of work together.
Well,
I thought you could do it. Oh, it's a dream. It's a dream working with you.
The pain comes of normally like just getting the budget and the setup and I like, you know, making sure at UPS we are risk adverse. So the forecasting of what engagement we're going to get out of it and how it's going to succeed, that is actually comes right up at the beginning. So we are very determined, like when we set this off, we've got a clear content strategy, storytelling, and that will actually dictate where we go down. When we work with like Moore's Law Media and other agencies, yeah, it gets much better. A part of the reason we partner with you is because the trust is there, the mutual trust is there, that you understand our brand, you understand what we're trying to tell. And I think that's one of the key things when you're looking at doing these storytellers. We can't be everything as marketers, and internally marketing, you know, if you have a super big team, you may have some great copywriters, you may not. I think it's unrealistic to think that as marketers we can do everything based on time and on skill. So I always think that, you know, partnering with great agencies is important. So for us, when we have the process with you, it's great, it goes back and forth. So there's a few that we've worked on that have been really good. Obviously, you know, the clarifying customs was great. We really did well on that.
The brokerage series.
Brokerage series, and pulled all that out. We've worked with Click-to-View before on some story mining. The other one that I threw a bit of a curveball for you, it's not a story, but it's still around, in essence it is, I threw the curveball and asked you to design the tonality of my chatbot for Line.
That was a weird gig.
In Japan, Taiwan, and Thailand. So
that was a weird gig.
Again, it's not a story, but it sort of is, because that person is going to be the one telling, when we talk about utility, is the one answering the questions around the utility answers. So that's why I had you come in and help, and you gave the great recommendation of let's use scriptwriters, because like I said, I still look back on that light bulb moment where I realized that the chatbot was going to be in 99% local language and I couldn't proof it, and I was going to ask a junior to translate tonality when everyone hates chatbots, and I was like, and hence she came up with the solution for the scriptwriters, which is going quite well at the moment. So I think the process for us is, at the beginning, is a challenge because we are already setting up the measurement and the ROI of it. So because if we're to get the money out, we basically have to have that up front. So we take a lot of work and time in doing that, and it's not done by chance. Like I said, a lot of the strategy is pulled out. A lot of analysis is done by a lot of different data as to why we should do a story, what type of stories we should do. Should it be short form? Should it be long form? Should it be video? Like all of that type of stuff is discussed. So that can be quite painful for us to get there. And I know it's good. We work with you and some other partners to help us get us there as well. I'd say once we kickstart the process, this is also why we work with partners. So basically yourself and with the influencers. I'm not going to lie, I personally would not want to have to coordinate 3 influencers to do all of that together.
You talk about reliability.
Reliability.
My understanding is working with influencers.
Not that it's influence, but I don't have the time. My team don't have the time. It's not their forte. Like, you know, we've got a lot of things that we're very good at, but I feel like, you know, there's people out there that are managing them for a reason.
So you worked with an influencer agency for that?
We do have, we've worked with one in the past, and then one, which I've talked about briefly, that you need to meet.
Oh, yeah.
That, you know, we're looking at, again, of how to do content creation and more specific to that snackable type of stories, which again is researched of what is trending, what is that, and that's going to feed back into the larger stories as well. So that's what I like about this. You know, when you talk about short form content, long form content, video, blogs, podcasts, audiograms, all those different things, again, they all feed back into what works, what doesn't. And there's no one size fits all. And to be honest, you should have a variety. That's just the whole parcel of it.
You're not going to get the data, the picture, unless you have enough spread, right?
Well, it's not just about that. You think about yourself. How do you consume information? And there's different times you might have a podcast versus, you know, a video versus something else. And it could be based on your need, whether it be utility or just based on your habits, based on who you are. So it's important to have that variety. As a good marketer should look at where is the most impactful side. So the process for us is a bit painful at front. Gets better when we start to work with the agencies, because then we pass on the pain to you guys.
Oh, it's not painful. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege.
And then, I think we've been very lucky at UPS with the partners that we've chosen. Like, that's why we work so closely with you and some of the others, that the output has been very good. And then because we set up at the beginning such robust measurements of what those KPIs are, what does success look like? Once it goes to market, we know. And we're able to then say, yes, this was successful and we want to do more like that, or this wasn't and we need to change it slightly.
Of all the people I've worked with, UPS are really rigorous with the data and the measurement. And I get to see many dashboards, and I'm not going to pretend I understand them all. But there are a lot there, and it's great because it justifies sort of ongoing investment, and it course corrects. And I think one of the things you're quite generous about is sharing that, and whether or not I enjoy looking at spreadsheets, you force me to, and it all goes back in. So like you said, it all goes back around and around.
Yeah, I think one of the difference that I find that I love about UPS compared to some of the other jobs, and it definitely has honed my skills as a marketer, is the setup and then the back. So it's not just about how many people engaged with you, how many people were on there, how long did they, these are important, and that gives you a lot of information. But as marketers, we care about that. But this has to be reported to the C-suite. They will take that with a pinch of salt, and then they'll sort of, go off into the fairy lane or whatever. Like, they don't really care as much. However, if I say, the fact that you did this gave us an insight that drove back into the business to create a different experience. So for example, some of the insights as to why we're online and how that can help us online.
To clarify, you don't mean online as in on the internet, you mean
no,
on
I mean Line,
the
app Line, like WeChat Line.
Known as Line,
yes,
for which we created a character, which is one of the parts of storytelling that I think is not, outside of the sort of screenwriting and fiction writing world, is not discussed enough or appreciated enough, is the role of character. But that's not what we're here to talk about. But yes, so Line, we mean the application, Line, which is a chat app, very popular in Korea, Japan.
So I think the one thing at UPS is we really do look at not just the measurements of how many people engage, how many people click, how many people went through, how many people went to a website, all that type of stuff, how long did they stay on. Those are very important stuff. They help you with the insights. I can't tell you, I love our CRM programs and how we've iterated them with you, because like I said, those insights drove me to doing a series that the series is doing great. But when I present that up to the C-suite, I share them some of those. But actually what I do is I go back and I say, what does that mean on a CX side? Because it's either two ways. It's either revenue or CX.
Customer
experience. Because they know CX drives revenue. So again, it comes back to revenue. So if I can tie it in, like if we've tapped on a promo code or something else, or we've done to traffic or whatever like that, I totally will do that, and we'll show them how we've driven revenue. If it's from a CX standpoint, so for example, some of the insights we got which drove why we did Line, the application, the Line app like WeChat, why we should go in and why we should have that, I use those and I present them to them as in, this is for a better customer experience, and from a business plan. Why is that a good customer experience? Because you have cost savings, because you will save on people not calling into GBS. On the benefit of that, we'll have a marketing suite. So then you will be able to promote and cross-sell. We know from our cross-sell programs that we already have an incremental lift. And the incremental lift is because we acknowledge if we did nothing, you'll still get some money, but by doing the program, you get something. So again, then we've got another avenue to do that incremental lift of cross-sell, because now we've got here. So this is the thing, we always try to track it back at some point to that revenue goal or to the CX goal. So how is it helping them? So that even with the clarifying customs, we have on our dashboard for CX of issue resolution being a problem. Like I said, it's very complicated, people complain. So linking that back when I present on that, it's about looking at the RMPS data. Are there less people complaining about this? Are there anybody saying anything better about it? So again, we're always trying to link it back to what is valuable to them, what can they talk about to their boss, because they're reporting back to corporate, which is pretty much CEO or below. They don't want to know about views or clicks or impressions. They want to know, what does that mean to the business impact?
Yep.
Did you get more customers?
Yep.
Did you increase your brand relevance score? So, and again, let's just be honest, to move that needle on brand relevance takes a lot of money. So the smaller things are not going to do it. So we have to figure out a way in the measurement of what is of value to them. Can we figure out how it goes into the revenue? Like I told you before, I made some great assumptions of figuring out how we can get followers online, which then go in the app, which then will use the chatbot, which then go into my cost savings. So at UPS, like I said, we map everything back as much as we can to be more business-minded in how we articulate our success for whether it be marketing, branding, but more important, even our stories.
Right, and I think that creates relevance in the upper echelons of a business, so we can get that influence back that marketers, for as long as I've been in the business, have been complaining they're losing, is relevance in the C-suite and all that kind of thing. That's great. So to summarize, storytelling makes money. Brilliant. I'm glad you said that.
Yep.
I hope I paraphrased that reasonably for you. I like what you said about complaint resolution, because of course with UPS, or any logistics firm, between the person sending the package and the person receiving the package, there's a huge number of things that happen that have nothing to do, or very little to do with you. If customs holds something up, or there's delays, or global events keep a ship from going somewhere, the problem is as far as the user is concerned, it's UPS.
Yeah.
So using the content to educate people about that journey, about that process, can hopefully help with that as well. I mean, that's a sort of consequence I hadn't thought of, but yeah, they might not want to know about the process, but you're obligated to try and get them to understand it, because otherwise they're going to blame you for everything. So
there was actually an SMB in the US I found, I think it was IG Reels. Clearly he'd had some comments that, people were asking, why is his international shipping so expensive? And he took the opportunity to explain that he doesn't actually mark it up. He takes the cost from UPS and just pass it along. But he chooses to go with UPS because of the reliability and the trust. And he actually took this sort of quick video to explain why it's important to do that, versus if you went with someone else, that it might be lost, it might be damaged, you wouldn't get it, you start to complain. He ended up having 71 million views of this content and a lot of engagement in the comments around it. So it shows you that, when we talk about storytelling and about, whether it be the recipient or the shipper and the utility or versus not, there's a lot of opportunity for us to work with here, because people are interested and can resonate with that. And, again, then it comes back down to the choice of, okay, well, if I really want that guy's unique clothes or whatever he was doing from there, okay, fine, I'll pay. I'll pay for the international shipping. Otherwise, you can't get it. But in today's world where we're all about the unique experience, the unique one of a kind, people are willing to pay. But the worst thing that can happen is that you pay for the product and it never arrives. And I think one of the great things that UPS offers, and this is why we're in the premium category versus if you went to the post office, is that we have guaranteed service. So we can guarantee, if you pay for the guaranteed service, it guarantees next day delivery. It will be there the next day. So if you think about from a business perspective, or Christmas, or someone's birthday, like you forgot Crystal, or your wife's,
my wife's birthday.
Highly
likely.
And you needed something the next day, and what she really wanted was in Korea, you could be like, okay, I'm going to pay for the service and get it there. So, you can see that people are interested in that content because it went viral. I mean, 71 million.
You need to send that guy a goodie bag.
I do.
All right, my last question. I ask everyone this question, and you can answer it personally or professionally, entirely up to you. Is there a story that you're burning to tell that you haven't had the chance or the opportunity or the time to tell yet?
Yes, I think we talked about this before. So I got approached, would I write a book randomly earlier this year? And I went, I don't know what I would write about. So I think it's coming, but I think it's going to be a little bit later. I think what's lacking that I'd love to see, that I probably could give a perspective of, is a book around the complexity and marketing in Asia. Everyone, especially from a region.
Sorry, don't you just mean APAC? It's all one thing, right? It's just one big blob, right?
It's not one book, no. Well, I know everyone thinks like Korea, Japan are the same, Taiwan, Thailand are the same. No. So I think that's the difference. I've worked here for almost 2 decades. I came young.
You started work at 13, wow, shocking.
I came young. So I've lived in Singapore for like 18 years. I've worked global and most of my time in a regional role. So I've spent a lot of time in Japan, India, China, Vietnam, Thailand. They're all vastly different. And I constantly have to remind myself in the regional role, okay, what does that mean locally? And what are the local nuances? And I don't think anyone's really taken the time to really nut that out or put a book about it. I think the other thing that I come across frequently that is fed back to me when people talk to me is that there's not enough marketers out there that think holistically in 360. We all talk about it, but apparently they don't do it. I'm not sure why.
I think because what does 360 mean now? There are so many channels, platforms, mediums, formats that you need to be on all the time. I think it becomes very, very overwhelming. And so we try and slice it and dice it. But as you very rightly said earlier on, is that everything integrates, everything triangulates.
Everything
so you
connects.
Can't slice it and dice
everything
it.
does, and it all has a consequence. And the thing is, I'll try anything, right? Within reason. We've got the forecasting and everything at the beginning. So it's a very robust best guess. But we're going to release a UPS jingle from a beatboxer next week.
Because why not?
Because why not? Who knows where that's going to go and how that comes into my strategy. It's all part of the bigger plan. But there's a whole lot of, as marketers, we need to be test and learn. We need to be agile. You have to have your core. So I think a book that goes back, reminds everybody to take a step back, get that core, get that strategy, think of everything in totality. Yes, you can't do everything. So then what is impactful for you to do? And what does that mean on the local countries? So for example, go back to it again, but again, Naver, WeChat, Line app, KakaoTalk, Bing, they're all different, whether it be like the platform, whether it be the social app, whether it be the search engine, they're all different. And we often want to lump them all in together with APAC, and you really can't. And then the last thing I'm going to add on is people underestimate the complexity of having everything in local language, especially when you go to multinational companies. Yeah. We talk to everybody in the countries and they speak English to us. So we think all our content should be in English. But reality is no one wants it in English in Japan. No one wants it in English in Thailand. They just entertain us by talking in English when they talk to us. So we forget that. And that adds just another layer of complexity. So I think a book that really dives into all of these type of things, even like what we just did, like our event toolkit. We do events all the time, but no one's really, doesn't always take the time to really, put all the hacks and the treasure troves together of what that means in together. And I feel like a book that really talks about Asia, and Asia not being one country, would be great. And so maybe one day I'll write that.
Well, it sounds like your pitch is out. We'll send this to some publishers and they can write in and talk to you. Nikki, thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you for watching or maybe even listening to The Business of Storytelling from Moore's Law Media in association with my very generous sponsor Vimeo, who are the place to make, manage and share amazing videos at vimeo.com. If you have any recommendations for great books or content about how we can get better at marketing to the individual countries in Asia, I know Nikki would like to see them, and I probably should have read them as well. So do let us know, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, pick a fight with me, whatever you need to do, get it off your chest, it's all fine, and we hope to see you again for another podcast soon.